Welcome to Business or Pressure, taking the pain out of massage business with me, Allissa Haynes. This is your no-nonsense guide to managing your massage or bodywork business. It's our mission to make sure that every massage therapist has the tools to make a living wage in a thriving business. So let's jump in. Today's topic is a direct result of the conversation we had with another therapist, our chat with a colleague in the last episode. We spoke with a massage therapist in Illinois, singly, who talked about one of the bigger errors she made on starting her business is the business structure and tax structure that she used when she started. She got some lousy advice, or just some advice that was not lousy, but not good for her. And it caused a hassle later. But business structure is something that we don't talk about enough. My hope is that you will walk away from this episode with a more clear idea of the options available to you and be able to have a coherent and educated conversation with a tax professional or attorney. I am not a tax professional or attorney. Neither I nor ABMP intends the information here to be official tax or legal advice. You should consult a certified tax preparer. You should consult a small business attorney if needed. You need a pro to help you work through what is the best application for your business. This is not tax or legal advice. That's out of the way. So I'm going to preface this with a little rant that I feel deep in my soul. That a very annoying part of being a small business owner is that you have to be knowledgeable about all sorts of weird things, like what type of oil or cream works best for my modality, which is, massage related, so it makes sense. But then we have to be experts about totally non-massage stuff, like what's the best flooring option for my office. By the time I closed my large office where I rented to several other practitioners, I felt like an expert in keyless locks and the 27-step protocol to add a new key code to the fancy door lock anytime I got a new renter, or if I needed to remove a key code of someone who was no longer a renter. I am so tired of learning things that are peripheral, tangential to our massage business. But here we are. It's just part of the process. And one of the things you have to have is a basic understanding of business and financial concepts and basic bookkeeping and record keeping. And then what we're talking about today, the difference between types of business entities and tax elections. When you open a business, when you accept money for your services, you are by default creating an entity, a thing that operates outside of just you as a person. And it's obvious when a larger business and corporation is an entity, but a solo massage practice is also a separate entity, and it's a real business that has to follow real business rules. Massage therapists generally fall into one of two types of business entities, and then there's a tax election option that confuses things. So for the purposes of this discussion, we're just going to assume that your business is a one-person solo massage business with no partners. And with this in mind, such a practice will usually be structured as a sole proprietorship or a single member LLC. So what are they? The sole proprietorship is an extremely simple thing to set up because it actually doesn't require any setup. It is a default business structure created the first time you accept payment for your services. By nature of being in business, you're a sole proprietor. That said, in some places, depending on your licensure and your business zoning and the city or town or county or state in which you practice, you might need to get a business certificate. Sometimes these are called business licenses. Sometimes they're called DBAs, which stands for doing business as. In the absolute default form of a sole proprietorship, your business name is automatically the same as your name. So I am Allissa Haynes. My business would be Allissa Haynes. And that's how a lot of massage therapists operate. However, if you operate under a different business name, this is also a reason you might need to get a business license or business certificate or DBA, which are all different terms for the same thing. That DBA part is a record of who owns the business. So Allissa Haynes is the owner of Haynes Massage LLC. Usually you go to your town or city clerk for this, maybe a county clerk, depending on where you're at. And oftentimes having this certificate, license, DBA in hand is required if you want to get a business checking account and if you need to file any paperwork to open an establishment or get any kind of zoning variance. The process for this varies, so you have to consult the regulatory bodies in your own state and county and town or city. Now, for tax purposes, a sole proprietorship can operate under the owner's social security number, and that's convenient, but you can also take another step to protect the privacy of your social security number, and you can get something called an EIN, an employer identification number. This is a free thing you can get online at irs.gov/EIN. There's a whole bunch of scams and online services that will charge you to get an EIN. You don't need to pay to get an EIN. It can be nice to get an EIN because then you don't have to give your social security number out left and right willy-nilly. Every time you have to fill out a W-9 for some company that contracts you to do a chair massage gig. If privacy is important to you, an EIN is the way to go. What is important to know is that sole proprietorships don't offer legal protection in your business. Your personal assets and your business assets are considered the same from a legal standpoint. If some legal action is taken against my business, like I hurt somebody, and for some reason my insurance doesn't cover it, my personal property is just as exposed as my business property if that person sues me. And for a sole proprietorship, when it comes to filing taxes, all the business profits are reported on a Schedule C, which is just an extra page of your personal tax return. A sole proprietorship has a lot of advantages in that it's convenient, but if you're concerned about legal liability and your personal versus your business assets, it's worth consulting with an attorney who might recommend an LLC, and we're going to talk about that next. The Limited Liability Company, LLC, for a single owner massage practice, an LLC operates very similar to a sole proprietorship. Your profits get reported on that Schedule C that gets added to your personal return. However, the LLC has a few differences, and the big one is legal protection. The LLC structure sets up the business in a way that shields the owner from liability. So LLC owners are protected from personal liability for business debts and claims. This means that if your business defaults on a debt or somebody sues you, the creditor can't legally come after the LLC owner's house or car or other personal possessions in most situations. There are exceptions to this rule, but in general, the LLC offers a greater protection to the owner. In order to get that LLC protection, though, you have to keep business finances and personal finances completely separate. So if the business starts paying for personal expenses with business funds, or personal money starts getting used to buy your business stuff, this can nullify the protections offered by an LLC if it's ever challenged. In most places, an LLC is fairly easy to set up. It's a form or two. Most states, you can do it online through your Secretary of State's website, but the fees can change. There are states where it's $100 or $50, and there's places like Massachusetts, where I live, where it's $500 a year to have an LLC. There are states like Illinois and California that require practitioners to have a specific kind of LLC, and it can be up to $800 in California. So it may or may not be worth it depending on the size of your business and what a professional suggests for you. With an LLC, you can also get an employee identification number, an EIN, from the IRS. Now, an LLC can file taxes just like a sole proprietorship does, with that Schedule C attached to your personal return. But there is also another option, and this is the tax election that I was talking about. It's not actually its own business entity, but it is a thing that an LLC can opt into to be taxed differently. And that is called an S Corp, an S corporation. It's not super common among small massage practices, but it is important to know about. And they're often referred to like LLC and S Corp as if it's one or the other, and that's not the case. An LLC is a business entity, and S Corp is a tax classification that might be chosen if you are an LLC. So why would a massage therapist business owner consider filing taxes as an S Corp? There are multiple factors involved in this decision, but the primary reason is usually tax efficiency. So when you file your taxes as a sole proprietor or LLC with that Schedule C attached to your personal return, you're paying self-employment taxes, which is Social Security and Medicare, on all of your income. So anything you took in providing massage minus your business expenses, that becomes the income that you pay self-employment taxes on. But when you file as an S Corp, you pay yourself in two ways. You become a W 2 employee of your own business, and Social Security and Medicare taxes are taken out of that W 2 payroll. And you pay yourself the rest via a distribution or dividend. And that is not subject to Social Security and Medicare taxes. So there are tax savings, but these savings aren't relevant to everyone. You have to be making a certain amount of income to make it worth your while. And there are increased administration fees for bookkeeping and payroll and other bits and pieces. And it's a lot more work. It's a lot more layered, and it can involve higher tax prep fees. It's just a whole other thing. So should you be filing as an S Corp? And the short answer is to talk to your tax preparer. And I know this is like a weird technical topic to try to conquer. It's important to me to talk about this because oftentimes we get really bad advice from other business owners in networking groups or community groups or whatever. And other business owners might call their business a small business, but they got 10 employees and they make a product that they sell. And that's a very different animal from a one-person massage practice. And if you're not sure what you're doing your first couple of years out, you just absorb that bad advice and do the wrong thing if you haven't consulted a professional. My goal is that you can now ask better questions and understand the answers when you talk to a professional to determine if you're good as a sole proprietor, if you should form an LLC, and whether or not that S Corp election is right for you. Let's jump into our chat with a colleague. And I am here with Meg Donnelly, owner and licensed massage therapist of Nova Weekend Warriors. Hi, Meg.
Hello.
Meg has so much to say and so much wisdom to share that this is her second appearance on my little chat with a colleague segment. And I'm really delighted. Meg, tell me what you're working on nowadays.
Yeah, well, right now we're pretty busy because as in many different counties throughout the US, we are currently dealing with massage regulation changes in our county at our county level. Luckily, we went through this about 2 years ago on the town level and got some really good education really quick on kind of how to work with your elected officials and how to work with your town officials. So we're using all of that knowledge to work with our county level since this will be a larger change to all of our regulations. We are about, I'd say maybe like halfway through the process. So the health department had started and put out a code, which we had lots and lots of issues with. And we were able to work through, we've got about 4 different items changed so far out of 17 pages. So we're slowly making progress. Now we're just going to look for the final code and then we'll meet with our elected officials once again. And when we meet with them the second time, they're the ones who are actually going to be voting on it. I think it's been really wonderful because where we're located, our elected officials are really super accessible. So we've been able to meet with about 8 out of the 10 elected officials. The health department met with us 3 times. So like ultimately, are we going to be 100% happy with the code? I'm sure we will not be. I think that we're going to be able to come to a compromise that is going to be able to be workable.
That is phenomenal. And I've been getting little updates from you as you go through this process. Tell us about the resource that I'm going to link to called Organizing Around Massage Regulation, Local Advocacy Playbook for LMTs, compiled by Casey White, LMT, and Meg Donnelly. That's you. I'm going to have a link to this in the resources in the show notes, but tell me what that's about. And you kind of already said how that would have come about, but how did it come about?
Yeah. So I think that the number one thing that we kind of have, this being our second time going through this in just a short span of 2 years, what we realized was there was like no resource that we could find on like what's the playbook? What do you do when this comes up? What do you do when you find out about it ahead of time? Because a lot of places don't even find out ahead of time, right? And we reached out to our various resources, and no one really had something at the town level or the county level. There were resources at the state level and resources nationally, but we were kind of felt like we were a little bit left on our own in this regard. So since we had success on, the first time around at the town level, and since we're now having some success at the county level, we thought, well, you know what? Let's put together a resource so that other people know what you can do. On the county level, one of the things that's been really beneficial for us is because we already dealt with this at the town level, we already have a connection with our officials, whether they are elected officials or whether they are town and county staff. And that is really one of the, I think, key things for anybody to look at this resource for is that you don't want to start after you kind of find out that these changes are happening. But if you have relationships with people in county government beforehand, that's going to make things a little bit easier because they already know you, they trust you, they understand what massage is and what it isn't. And that just takes you through. We have about 4 different phases that we've kind of gone through. And I won't go through them step by step, but the first is kind of getting oriented before anything happens, which I just talked about. The second thing is once the regulation is proposed, it's time to move. How do you do that? How do you organize with other massage therapists? 3 is taking action, what you want to do in speaking their language, how you want to kind of create commonality versus it's not yet the time for kind of an adversarial tone. And then finally, once the vote happens and beyond, making sure that you're keeping that relationship open with your government officials, because obviously, things are not stuck in time. And so we want to make sure that that relationship continues so that if there are changes in the future, they already know what we do. We already know what they do, and we already know who to reach out to.
Thanks for putting that together and in such a cohesive way that it can be shared with all of us. Yeah, this is a useful resource. And again, we'll link to it in the show notes. So we are here to steal the wisdom of practicing massage therapists. And we're doing this by asking one of a handful of questions. And the question for you today is, what's the best or worst money lesson you've learned in running your small business?
So I feel really lucky because I happen to have had a mentor from the time that I was in school. And that is by way of Allissa back in the massage business blueprint days. I think one of the early things that you and Michael had taught me was the method of breaking down your revenue by percentage so that you can kind of start to create a budget and figure out, how much you're going to be putting and allocating towards each of the resources. And in that method, and you can kind of correct me if I'm getting it wrong because I've tweaked it through the years. For me, it's about 40 to 50% of what I earn goes into my pocket as my pay. And then about 30% goes to expenses. About 15% of that goes to taxes. And that additional 5%, I actually invest back into the company. And then once a quarter, when I'm paying my quarterly taxes, I will either because a percentage usually comes out to about 18% on taxes. So I'll either take some of that for that, or if there's extra and I've already reached my threshold of what I want as a buffer in my account, then I'll take that and pay myself out as a bonus. So I feel really lucky because I know a lot of people, not just massage therapists, but business owners in general, that say the first couple of years they weren't able to pay themselves. And by using that method, I was able to pay myself. Now, was it a lot in the beginning? No. Did I need a part-time job in the very beginning? Absolutely. But I also because I was taking those percentages, I knew, oh, wait a minute, I can't buy that fancy jojoba this month because it's over my 30%. And so then I saved it until that quarterly bonus or until that, next month when I didn't have to pay my scheduling fee. Therefore, I always went in with the mentality of the most important thing is one, making sure I can cover my expenses and making sure that those expenses are their bare minimum when I was in the very beginning. And really above that was making sure that I'm always paying myself between 40 and 50% of whatever I earned the month before. So yes, there was a little bit, I had to obviously bring some money into the business because you've got to be able to set up your room and you've got to be able to put down your deposit on your rent. But after that, I was then able to quarterly take that money that was the excess and automatically pay myself back for what I had invested into the company before I got started. So I would say my top money advice is from the very beginning, make sure that you make paying yourself a priority. And the best way to do that is by creating a budget and making sure you stick with that budget when it comes to your expenses.
Yeah. And it's so funny because like the first few months, it is going to be a little weird and upside down. Like if you're only doing 10 massages and you have to make your rent, what you take home, what you pay yourself might only be 20% because you need that the rest of it for expenses. But I'm such a huge fan of even if you're only paying yourself, whatever, $100 a week for the first month or two, as you get more clients, increase the percentage that you pay yourself until it is what you want to be taking home. And that sets a really clear goal. And what I've found is, I used to use that percentage method and I still do to a point, but I found that I really liked paying myself weekly and I liked paying myself a flat amount. So I figured out, I did the math and my average income monthly, like my average gross monthly, and what would it look like? What amount can I pay myself flat? And then quarterly, because some weeks are busier and some weeks are slower, but it all evens out in the end. And I put the extra into, a separate little category in my budget and pay myself that quarterly dividend. And, I don't know, you used to work corporate and I've never worked like a big corporate job, but my partner does. So there's like annual bonuses and stuff. So apparently like big white collar corporate jobs, you get just like, an annual bonus and you never know exactly what it's going to be. It depends on how the company's done that year. But like that kind of blew me away every April when he's like, yeah, I'm going to get that bonus and what should we do with it? And I'm like, I've never gotten a bonus in my whole life. So I started kind of treating that little extra quarterly dividend like a bonus. It makes me feel very grown up.
It is. And it's like, and the wonderful thing too, whether you do the percentage or whether you do a flat and then do a bonus a quarterly, is that like then as you are filling your books, you get to start to see like you're bringing home and you're pocketing more money. And if you're not kind of following any kind of process, then you don't really know. And listen, like, unfortunately, right? Massage, just like everything else, has been like commoditized and capitalized and all of the, commercialized, all the C words, right? So we can really get in a place where we're like, oh, I have to have the nicest sheets and I have to have the nicest this and I have to have the nicest that. And so just told me about what they bought and I want to buy that as well. When I started, I was like, I'm not making enough. So guess what? I have 5 sets of sheets because I'm doing a max of 4 clients a day. So I have 4 sets of sheets plus one. Oh my gosh, there's an emergency. And that's it. And then I would come home at the end of the day and I'd be tired, but I'd have to do my laundry because and then a month later, I was like, oh, good, I can go to Target and buy a set of sheets. And I bought a second set of sheets.
I'm so excited to tell you because I just did this. I got rid of a lot of stuff when I closed my big office like 5 years ago, and I started up in just my one little room now. The way my schedule is, I work 2 days back to back, and they're long days, usually with 5 clients each. And I did not have 10 sets of sheets. I had like 6 or 7. So I could make it through a day, but I would have to come home after this really long day and do laundry, and like have to do it right away because I was going to be out early the next morning. And I finally last week, because I had finally put enough money aside in my massage supplies category, I had enough money to go buy sheets. And now I think I have 11 sets of sheets now. So I even have like one extra because I'm not going to see more than 5 people in a day. So I can actually go 2 whole days and not have to do sheets in between. And then I'm usually home for a day or two. And then I work 2 more days. And it is so decadent. And I'm glad I waited because I really wanted to I didn't want to take money out of paying myself or take money out of contributing to my retirement to buy these sheets. But because I was structured enough, it was actually a mindful decision. Like a couple of months ago when I thought about it, I was like, no, I don't want to lower my contribution to my 401k this week because I need to buy, $150 worth of sheets. And they weren't that much. They were like half that. But it's a mindful decision about where you're going to pull from. Yeah, it was so exciting. Like I'm 20 years in and I was like so giddy about going out and buying 3 sets of sheets. So,
but it's exciting. And then it makes like the purchase like mean that much more to you. I don't know. I really adore that. And also like think about the things that you thought were important when you first started that like, if I like the first set of sheets that I bought the flannel sheets and I don't like flannel
Nope, I
sheets,
don't
right?
either.
But I only had one set of flannel sheets. And then I bought a pair of Target microfiber sheets that I fell in love with, and they were less expensive. And my clients mentioned how much they liked them. And so then I found my sweet spot and I bought a few more, and then I bought a few more. And so it's like with those things, we could have, if I bought everything that I thought I needed in the beginning, there would have been so much more waste, so much more
I
waste.
think about that because every couple of years, I feel like I throw away like 5 half bottles of essential oils. I'm like, why do I buy these? And there's like 1 or 2 that I actually use and will keep buying, but I'm like, why do I go to buy the ones I really use and I always tack on some other rando and
Yeah.
I just end up throwing it away like 3 years later when it's rancid. Good Lord, Alyssa, make better choices.
Well, no, because also there's there's all those capture things too. Like whenever I know when I don't buy essential oils anymore, but when it was always like, oh, I have to pay. And even if it was like $1.99 shipping, I have to pay $1.99 or $3.99 shipping unless I buy one more 19.99 bottle. So I would buy another 19.99 bottle. But then you learn, you're like, you know what? It's worth paying a little extra in shipping
I
and
totally
leave it
pay
at that.
shipping now. I've gotten over myself. Look at
Yeah.
us, all the wisdom, all of it. Thank you so much for joining me, Meg. I really appreciate it. And again, the links to that workbook is going to be in the show notes because it's really, really important that we all have access to that. Thank you. And yeah, thanks for your time.
You're welcome.
If you have a question about running your business or an idea for an episode, please reach out via email at businessorpressure@abmp.com. You can also find me building websites and coaching massage therapists at deepbreathdigital.com. Make sure you subscribe to ABMP's podcast so you don't miss a beat. I will see you right back here for the next episode. I can't wait.